But first, let me ask this, maybe some good news. Could 2024 be the year that common sense makes a comeback? We're only a couple of days into the new year, but already there are green shoots of sanity pushing through the woke dirt that saturates our culture. A West Australian Council has just voted no to adding an Aboriginal name to the existing name of a river that flows south of Perth. Now, Indigenous activists wanted to call the Blackwood River also the Goobilyup River as a nod to the original inhabitants, but the council said no, one name is enough. And Kel, I'm inclined to agree with them. Two names for the one place or the one river. I mean, it's confusing. It's an administrative nightmare because you've got a duplicate of everything, which then adds further cost to the ratepayer. But I think what happens in these situations is I get confused, right? Is it Ayers Rock or is it Uluru? Is it Fraser Island or whatever they call it now? But I can imagine the media with two names, they're going to prefer the Indigenous name every time to be seen to do the right thing. And so over time, the Indigenous name just becomes the name by default, does it not?
It does, and I've got to say, your Indigenous accent was brilliant. Really well
Thank you. I felt like I nailed that in the introduction. Thanks, Kel.
Can I tell you, this is interesting. Not a lot of people know this. There are about approximately 4 million place names in Australia. 3/4 of them, 3 million of them, are Indigenous right now. Gunnedah, Gundagai, Gundawindi. The 3 million names on our maps are Indigenous. So when people want to add another Indigenous name, it's not because there's not enough. There are 3 million of them already. It's because they don't like the non-Indigenous names. In other words, it's destructive. It is an attempt not to add Indigenous names, 3 million's quite a few. It's an attempt to get rid of the non-Indigenous names. Now, that's a destructive thing. It's not a good thing. It's not a healthy thing. And what this council has done in saying, no, this country is full of all kinds of people and that's the name of the river, is really good.
Could this be a sign, Liz, that the tide is starting to turn?
I think that would be a very, very positive take on this, but we do have more good local council news, and Lord knows it's rare, so we've got to harp on about it when it actually does happen. Today, our headlines were graced with the news that a Western Sydney councillor has said that if his party, the local community party, won the majority in his Western Sydney Council, the Cumberland City Council, he'll be scrapping welcome to countries, smoking ceremonies. They're all going out the window. Steve Christou rightly makes the point that only 0.63% of that city actually are Indigenous, i.e. they're not necessarily interested in welcome to countries at every single meeting. And of course, we all know in Western Sydney, it famously voted quite strongly no in the Voice referendum last year. Here's the man himself, Christou, speaking earlier on the Bolt Report this evening.
Quite frankly, the welcome to country ceremony has become overdone, watered down, and people are sick of it being shoved down their throats. Why do we need to be welcome to a country that we helped build and, we turned Australia, a great country, into an even better country? And we feel unwelcome when we hear welcome to country, but also, no matter where you come from, whether it's Anglo roots, ethnic roots, any background, we are all equal. And that's an overwhelming driving force behind this.
His party currently holds 4 of the 12 councillor spots. Labor holds 8. So he's got his work cut out for them if they want to take the majority at the next election. But I think this is a very strong policy platform to run on, given, well, firstly, his electorate. Yeah. But isn't it an indictment on the current lot of elected MPs, whether local, state or federal, that all you've got to do to make headlines nowadays is actually represent the interests of the people who elected you and pay you to represent them?
Well, Steve is a former Labor mayor and he left the Labor Party because he felt like the Labor Party is not representing local constituents. And I agree with you. I don't think he even needs another policy. This is about the only policy he needs. We're going to scrap welcome to country, and especially in Western Sydney, I reckon he'll sweep the polls.
Can you imagine what would happen if I did a welcome to country where I said welcome on behalf of the settlers and pioneers, past, present and emerging, who took undeveloped bushland and turned it into productive farmland and fed millions, and built permanent buildings on this land to house and protect an increasing population. If I did a welcome to country like that, can you imagine what would happen?
I was moved. I got a bit teary when you were saying that, Kel. I thought it was good.
It's stupid. It's not a country that belongs to any one group of people. It's our country.
And that's especially important in a electorate like Cumberland, where you've got a high migrant population. If you want social cohesion, you can't keep dividing everybody up.